You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Packers Talk.
You're listening to No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Radio Network, your home for in-depth and thoughtful Packers analysis. I'm your host, Gil Martin. My co-host is my good friend, Sean Tian. In addition to this show, I write for the PackersPost.com and Cheesehead TV. Sean was a TV sportscaster in Minnesota. We're all here for one thing. We're here to talk Packers because you're all here for one thing, and that's a love for Green Bay football. And Sean, we're in off-season mode, but lots going on in Packer world.
Yeah, hey, and in sports world in general, the Milwaukee Brewers, for those Wisconsin sports fans who are Packer fans who pull for the Brewers, that season's right around the corner. Even though the Bucks may be trading away the best player in their franchise history, they're still in season right now. And Wisconsin's own Ticket King, our sponsor, they can help you get to those games, get to that action. For more than 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packer fans, as well as Bucks, Brewers, and Summerfest tickets. Find them on the web at theticketking.com. That's theticketking.com. Or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. And watch every episode of No Huddle Radio on Packers Talk Network on YouTube with Gil and myself. Go to YouTube, type Packers Talk Network in the search bar, click on the PackersTalk.com link with the green background, the yellow goalpost. Click on the bell, subscribe, turn the notifications on, join the discussion and chat with us live. And Gil, I feel like it's Groundhog's Day where we've been talking coaches, the coaching staff, and the coaching situation for the Green Bay Packers so often, but with good reason. We're not just talking about just to talk about something. There's a lot to talk about with the coaching staff. Now that Matt LaFleur has received an extension reportedly, and Brian Gutekunst, the general manager as well. Jeff Hafley, he's on to South Beach. He's going to be coaching the Miami Dolphins next year. And that left an opening at defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. And it was announced, reports are this week, that they hired former Arizona Cardinals head coach and before that, former Philadelphia Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon as the defensive coordinator. Gannon's defenses in Arizona, pretty subpar for the most part, but he didn't call the plays. He delegated that responsibility to Nick Rawlis, his linebackers coach at the time. And then before that, though, he was really good in Philly. He got fired from the Cardinals job just about less than a month ago after the season ended in Arizona. Gil, this is it's interesting because Jim Leonard, that was supposedly the favorite. We talked about it last week. Packers didn't even spend an extra minute to make sure that they could interview him before they made this decision. This news came down on Sunday. Is Jonathan Gannon the right hire for the Green Bay Packers?
Well, we won't know until he gets a shot at the job, obviously. Look, I think he fits a lot of the criteria we were talking about last week. And to me, that's the bottom line. Whether or not he'll be effective or not, we'll find out. I will say this. I'm not as concerned about the poor defensive ratings he had in Arizona because he really didn't have the talent to work with the Cardinals. And injuries also certainly did affect that team as well. But overall, it's very hard to make chicken salad from chicken you-know-what, and he was not able to do that in Arizona. But before the injuries hit this year, for example, they were holding their own as far as their defensive play. But when you only have one or two really, their best player on defense was Budda Baker, right? I mean, and you just, when you don't have a lot of guys and those guys go down, it's a real problem. Look, the Packers defense lost two of their best players for the season and didn't recover from that either, even though they were playing at a much higher level before those injuries. So I'm not so worried about the bad defensive rankings from his time in Arizona. What I like, though, is, what were the criteria we went over last week? Guys got to be in different defensive systems. He has certainly checked that box over the course of his coaching career. Mm-hmm. He has defensive coordinator experience. He certainly checks that box. The fact that he has head coaching experience, I think, is a bonus because we've talked about Matt LaFleur maybe needing another voice in his ear to help him with certain situations. And I think the fact that he has not worked with LaFleur previously is a benefit as well. So there's a lot of things I like, but the proof is in the pudding. We have to see what he does on the field. What are your thoughts?
Well, you mentioned Budda Baker in Arizona. That was really the premier talent that he had in Arizona. But outside of that, really not a lot. Like you said, you can't turn chicken bleep into chicken salad. And Matthew Tan, thank you for joining in on the chat right there on YouTube. Did we get the right guy? Well, we're discussing that right now. If we got the right guy with Jonathan Gannon, Gil and I think, are very much along the same lines of thinking, where we think this is good because he does have the experience at the NFL level and he's done it at a very high level. That's why he got the Arizona Cardinals head coaching job. Budda Baker even raved about Jonathan Gannon in Arizona too, publicly. He was very much in support of the guy running the defense and as a defensive mind in general. Look what he did in Philly a few years ago, where obviously that group was very talented along that D-line, but there were 5 guys on that D-line who had 10 or more sacks his final season there. You're talking about the quarterback. That's impressive, Gil. And if I'm the Green Bay Packers, I think the guys who are probably most thrilled about having Jonathan Gannon here, and guys who are talented but just haven't really maybe reached that level that we're hoping to see them reach, is probably Lucas Van Ness and Devontae Wyatt. And then probably you could mix Edgerrin Cooper in there as well.
I'm going to add one more name because I think he's a player who's going to play a big role in this defense next year, and that's Javon Bullard. I just think Bullard as that slot guy, the way that Gannon likes to play defense, and sometimes his defense has had, 3 or even 4 safeties on the field at one time. And if you still view Bullard as a safety or safety / slot, whatever you want to call him, I think Bullard could play and Evan Williams could play a very big role in the success of this Green Bay defense next year.
It really helps that for the Packers safety room, where Xavier McKinney is such a good center fielder on the deep part of the field. Nothing gets by that guy deep. And it's just a nice security blanket to have back there. Evan Williams is a very good deep safety too, but he can help in the run. And Javon Bullard is terrific near the line of scrimmage. Yeah. That's where you have a really, really versatile, solid safety group. You got 3 guys who are bona fide talents, in my opinion. And I feel like Jonathan Gannon's going to get the most out of that group for sure. Jeff Hafley obviously was a great D coordinator, but it's going to be interesting because Jonathan Gannon I don't think he's really a big blitzer either. He's not a chaos agent like Brian Flores in Minnesota, who it looks like he's staying, unfortunately, for the Packers' sake. But I feel like Jonathan Gannon can get a little creative. He's really good disguising pressures and coverages and everything like that. Philly got to the Super Bowl his final year as the D coordinator there. His defense was a big reason why. It was a very, very tough unit to get a read on for opposing offenses. Obviously the Chiefs scored 38 points on his defense in the Super Bowl that year, but that was Patrick Mahomes at his all-time highest level. He was an MVP that season and everything. But overall, Jonathan Gannon, he knows how to coach defense. He knows how to call defense, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's right. And he even ran some schemes in Philadelphia and I believe in Arizona as well. I have to watch a little more film before I can definitively say that. But he ran some schemes where he played zone on one side of the defense and man on the other side. Mm-hmm. Now, you need a better cornerback than the Packers have right now to do that effectively. But again, it just shows his flexibility, his ability to improvise or to do something different. And, I like those cat and mouse games, those chess games between coaches. And I get the feeling Gannon can do a good job of playing chess with opposing offensive coordinators once the season gets underway.
And you talk about the chess pieces, I feel like, who are going to be so critical to the defensive side of the ball in Gannon's scheme. It, like you said, it's Javon Bullard, it's Evan Williams, it's Edgerrin Cooper. I feel like there's a lot that can be done with those guys because I feel like their skill sets are so versatile and they are those are 3 very talented players, and they're all in the same draft class, which is extremely impressive on the from a front office perspective. That's an extremely impressive draft that they got 3 guys who are bona fide starters and really good football players at the NFL level. But I got to think when I was mentioning Lucas Van Ness, where he's probably I don't anticipate his 5th-year option is going to get picked up. I just don't think that's going to happen.
Right.
I think he got better this year, but I just think the Packers are going to look at this more like a Quay Walker situation where it's like, okay, we're not going to pick up his option, but we're not totally dead set on letting him walk after next year. But we're open to a contract extension if he does make a jump in year 4. This is huge where it's like Lucas Van Ness, this is a scheme where Jonathan Gannon knows how to dial pressure. He knows how to get guys to the quarterback. Lucas Van Ness may be a big beneficiary of that, especially going into a contract year. And also, I'll say this too, Gil. Devontae Wyatt proved how important he was, especially after he went down for the season on Thanksgiving. Brian Gutekunst's better extend him as soon as possible because I think a breakout is coming in Jonathan Gannon's scheme.
Yeah, I think a breakout is coming, and I think you want to reduce that cap hit from the 5th-year option for this year as well with a team that is already over the cap, but getting closer. It's not a panic situation. The other thing I would add is I think that he will, and you alluded to this, he will help Edgerrin Cooper bounce back because when Micah Parsons was brought in, Cooper's role changed significantly. He wasn't blitzing as often. He wasn't trying to penetrate and make plays behind the line of scrimmage, which he did so well in his rookie year. I think that Gannon will do a good job of figuring out the best way to utilize the great skill set that is Edgerrin Cooper that we saw so much in his rookie year and only saw intermittently last season.
He's a heat-seeking missile, man. And I feel like Jonathan Gannon's a smart enough guy where he's shown defensively as a coach, he's a smart enough guy where he's going to put him in a great spot. Now, I feel like, Gil, it was a couple of years ago where Jeff Hafley, you hired a prior head coach to be your D coordinator, and we looked at it where it's like, hey, he's either going to be terrific and he's going to be a head coach in 2 or 3 years, which it happened in 2 years after 2 years in Green Bay, or he's going to be terrible and the Packers defense is going to suck. This is kind of a lose-lose situation, but obviously I'm hoping for the former rather than the latter because then it's a matter of like, hey, like we got good talent and we got the right guy calling the plays and calling the shots. I think this will be good overall, but I don't anticipate Jonathan Gannon being in Green Bay long because I think he's going to do a really good job with having Micah Parsons there and Devontae Wyatt and all this talent on the defensive side of the ball. And I think he's going to be back in a head coaching role pretty soon. So you might as well take advantage while you got him.
Look, I mean, when you're a winning team, there is going to be assistant coach losses almost every year. This year, it's a little more because you lost your defensive coordinator and he took some guys with him. I get that. But I think with Gannon, we may have an extra year maybe compared to Hafley only because he didn't do very well with the Cardinals, and maybe that'll make teams interview him but hesitate a little bit on pulling the trigger. Yeah. So instead of 2 years, maybe we get a 3rd year with Gannon before a team says, you know what, we're going to give him another shot.
It's interesting because in Arizona, I felt like we talked about this when the Packers played Arizona the last couple of years where this team, I feel like the Arizona Cardinals were a better team than the record showed where they were in pretty much every game in Jonathan Gannon's time there, but they just didn't know how to finish. And I think part of it, I don't think most of it was Jonathan Gannon's fault too. I think a lot of it was the inept play at quarterback specifically. Yeah. And I think it was just a lack of talent on the defensive side of the ball. But, man, his teams competed. I mean, his teams overall competed in Arizona. The record didn't show it, but I think his first year, I think I remember talking about that going into his second year because we were previewing the Packers schedule, a few seasons ago already, Gil, where it was a matter of like Arizona is a sneaky game because they are in every single game. And if you don't take these guys seriously, they're going to win because they are literally in every single game. Maybe him focusing on just one side of the football instead of all aspects of the game, maybe that's going to benefit the Packers as well.
Yeah, and look, I remember when we were previewing the Arizona game this year where we said, yeah, they've lost, 3-4 games in a row, but by a total of like 8 points or 9 points.
4 points or fewer in each of those games.
Yeah, all those games were close. And you mentioned the quarterback play. That was obviously an issue and continues to be for Arizona. But I'll even add this. some people are great coordinators, but are not great head coaches. And I'm not saying Gannon is not or doesn't have the potential to be a great head coach, but he has proven to be a great coordinator, and that's the role he's going to play here in Green Bay.
That was Dick LeBeau, man. Dick LeBeau was a tremendous defensive coordinator for so long, mostly with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Failed as a head coach, but hey, maybe we got our Dick LeBeau. But time will tell. Overall, we like the hire. We hope for good things. We'll see what happens moving forward. But we're getting some news, though, also since Sunday, since Gannon has been brought in as the defensive coordinator, of some new names on the defensive coaching staff in Green Bay. The Packers are reportedly adding Bobby Babich as the defensive passing game coordinator. Babich was interviewed for the defensive coordinator job a couple of years ago before that job went to Jeff Hafley, and he was the defensive coordinator for Sean McDermott in Buffalo for the prior 2 years. Obviously, though, things are changing in Buffalo now that Sean McDermott's been fired. They also added Virginia Tech defensive coordinator Sam Seifkes as linebacker coach. So you got a lot of experience coming in, Gil. You got a lot of guys who have defensive coordinating experience where now they're relegated essentially to more smaller roles, but they've been in the bigger roles in the past. Are these hires, are these good for Green Bay, or is it bad? Because, I mean, I feel like there are times in life in general, you get too many alphas in the same room, and you get a lot of head butting and everything like that, and a lot of arguments, and no good progress can be made if people are getting in their own ways. But is this good? Is this more so a good thing or a bad thing to have so many former defensive coordinators in the same room now?
I think it's a good thing, and I think what you're getting is talent and experience. And again, some people are not meant to be head coaches, or maybe some people are better off as position coaches than as coordinators. Or sometimes you do something for the first time, you're not great at it, you take a step back, you get another chance, and you do better at it. So I just like the experience of the coaches that Matt LaFleur and this staff have brought in. I think that's a benefit. And look, obviously you don't know how people are going to get along when they're working together every day for 8 or 9 months during a football season. But if LaFleur didn't think he could work with these people, and I'm sure he spoke to a lot of people who did work with them, he wouldn't hire them. If the interview went poorly and they were butting heads right away, that's a non-starter. So, I mean, again, you don't know until it happens, but I think overall I'm optimistic.
With Bobby Babich, I think that's a solid hire because Matt LaFleur has obviously properly vetted this guy now for dating back to a couple of years ago. Right. And I bet Sean McDermott there's a lot of respect for Sean McDermott, I feel like, in NFL circles in general too. And if he gave him a positive word of encouragement, or if he gave him the thumbs up, essentially, you're like, yeah, this is a good coach to have, then I trust that hire. And also with Bobby Babich having experience coordinating defense at the NFL level, let's say Jonathan Gannon is a short-term rental at defensive coordinator and he gets a head coaching job elsewhere if he does really well in Green Bay. You have an heir apparent in-house right away in Bobby Babich, potentially. You really do. There's a chance, though, also that I bet Bobby Babich could be a defensive coordinator elsewhere after this upcoming
season. Very possible.
So that's very possible. So Babich may not be here for very long either. I mean, that's the NFL. It's not for long.
It's year to year. Everything is pretty much year to year in the NFL right now with assistant coaches and really with head coaches. Let's face it. If Matt LaFleur and the Packers somehow go 4-13 next year, he's gone.
Yeah, Sam Seifkes, I trust that hire too. That sounds like a Jonathan Gannon decision because he did coach linebackers under Gannon in Arizona before he got the Va-Tech job at the college level. But if anything, too, it's like if you're anticipating that Gannon or Babich or whoever moves on sooner rather than later, you got guys in-house that possibly could be ready to take over the reins if need be.
Yeah, and that's encouraging. And that was a problem last year where, when we knew Jeff Hafley might leave and get head coaching opportunities, there was nobody in-house who you would be like, yeah, this person is ready to be the next defensive coordinator of the Packers. So the fact that you now have that, I think, is a step forward.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I just hope it doesn't turn into essentially like a measuring contest, we'll say politely, where I just hope it doesn't turn into that in that defensive room. But obviously, Jonathan Gannon's time in Arizona was marred by a lot of losses. There was times last year where he kind of lost his cool on the sideline for good reason, in my opinion. I don't know if for those who are watching, or Gil, if you remember last year when his running back, Amari DiMarcado, had a huge touchdown run. He dropped the ball right before the goal. It was against Tennessee, too.
Yeah.
Dropped the ball right before the goal line. Something that you're taught from peewee age is you run with the ball through the end zone. And he was screaming at him at the sideline where it's like, and then he apologized for it. It's like, come on, man, really? Like, that's, if anything, I want a coach who's going to shape teams up, essentially. I feel like lack of discipline has been a big issue for the Packers kind of the last couple of years or so. And maybe Gannon, and I don't think that was I'm not saying that's a dig on Jeff Hafley, but maybe Gannon having that voice there to get guys focused on the right things and not be selfish in the moment or anything like that. Maybe that's also a good hire as well. And I'm hoping Babbage and Seifkis can also provide that kind of experience too.
Yeah, and again, I think it's a positive. And then, you have these experienced coaches, and you could also bring in some younger guys. And they're not old; they're in the 40s, right? But you could also then have them bring in some less experienced position coaches or assistant position coaches and build, different levels of experience throughout the organization.
Comment coming in on the chat, having former coaches gives any hope that Matt LaFleur can get some help learning to game and clock manage. Absolutely. That was my first thought, where it's like you bring in a guy like Jonathan Gannon. I hope he gets the associate head coach title. It just depends on what's going to happen with Rich Bisaccia. We'll talk about that in just a little bit of potential moves that are coming. But obviously a lot of changes on the defensive side of the ball after the departure of Jeff Hafley to Miami. He's reportedly taking former assistants Sean Duggan, Ryan Downard, and Wendell Davis with him to Miami. They're all leaving the Packers. Derek Ansley, who was the defensive passing game coordinator for Hafley, he's leaving the Packers following the Bobby Babbage hire. Sean Mannion on the offensive side of the ball, Gil, getting multiple interviews with the Eagles to be their next offensive coordinator. There's not really any news with Packers offensive assistants. Adam Stenovich, the OC right now, is supposedly getting interest from other teams, but there's nothing concrete there. What would you think about that? I just want to chime in real quick because Nick Sirianni does not really call plays as in Philadelphia on offense. He gives that to the offensive coordinator. He lets his offensive coordinator do the job. Shane Steichen is his most successful O coordinator in his time in Philadelphia. He's now the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Sean Mannion, he's a guy who Jordan Love and Malik Willis clearly took steps. Matt LaFleur had a lot to do with it. I think Sean Mannion had a bunch to do with it too. Is there a way that we can maybe keep Sean Mannion from going to Philadelphia and staying in Green Bay maybe another season?
I hope so. I'll put it that way. I hope so. But, if he's going to get play calling responsibility, that's a promotion. And the Packers would not, under the league rules and bylaws, be able to prevent him from taking that promotion.
Yeah. And the interesting thing here where it's like there's a lot of, if you're thinking as a fan, where it's like, oh, just let Stenovich go and promote Sean Mannion to offensive coordinator. But guess what? Sean Mannion's not going to call plays in Green Bay. Right. That's not going to happen. So he's got to go somewhere else. And Philadelphia is a very talented team that had significant offensive issues. There was no rhythm or flow multiple times there on the offense. Sean Mannion's a rising coach. He's probably going to be a head coach in the next 3 years or so. But he's got to. It's kind of like when Matt LaFleur before he got the Packers head coaching job. He went to the Titans for a year to call plays because before that he knew he wasn't going to call plays for Sean McVay with the LA Rams. So this is a situation where we're probably going to lose Sean Mannion if the job is offered to him, because I don't think there's any room for him to kind of grow as a coach beyond being a quarterback coach in Green Bay right now.
Yeah, and like you said, even if he got the OC title, he's not going to call plays, and calling plays is what you need on your resume if you want to be more than an offensive coordinator. If you want to get considered for head coaching jobs, calling plays is a significant part of that resume.
Gil, obviously the coaching staff is getting molded. It's getting changed up and revised a little bit from this past season. We're hearing a lot of reports on who's taking over, who's going to be the new assistants coming in. What other coaching moves do the Packers still need to make, in your opinion?
I got to start with special teams. There are rumors that Rich Bisaccia could be retiring, which may indeed be a graceful way for him to exit instead of the Packers having to fire him. But I just don't see much improvement up and down special teams over the last, 3 years, 4 years that he's been the special teams coordinator. It is time, I think, to try to find someone else. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's all Rich Bisaccia's fault, but, a good special teams coordinator can help his players count to 11, and figure out how many players should be on the field. The blocked field goal where you had Luke Musgrave and Brant Banks lined up next to each other. There were moves that were just mind-boggling when it came to special teams that just have persisted throughout. And yes, the front office needs to do more as far as prioritizing special teams and bringing in players who can help the special teams get better. But, Bisaccia was supposed to be this guru. He was supposed to be this special teams ace. And unfortunately, the special teams units have just not thrived. I would like to see a change there. And then obviously he would no longer be the assistant head coach as well.
There needs to be a resolution there, and a change needs to happen. Whether he gets stripped of the associate head coach title or he just moves on in general. Now, Cleveland, the Browns, they just hired Todd Monken, the Baltimore's former offensive coordinator, to be their head coach. Supposedly, their special teams coordinator, Bubba Ventrone, is now available, and he's a very well-respected name in the NFL in special teams. Do the Packers do that? We don't know. I don't think they're essentially going to can Rich Bisaccia, like you said, but it could be, hey, can you please just retire? Just retire, because we need to make a change. In the chat chiming in, our punt game was better. Our kicker played hurt, and they sat our two best returners. Yeah, but that whose decision is it to sit the two best returners? You know what I mean? Is that Rich Bisaccia? Is that Matt LaFleur's? I don't know. But our kicker playing hurt. Whose decision was that to play him hurt when you had Lucas Havlicek kicking just fine for the most part? I don't know. That's what it comes down to. Now, Daniel Whalen, that's the biggest positive that has come from the Rich Bisaccia era. Now, you nailed that for sure. I'm gonna say that, but there are too many times though, also with game management situations. I think it's more so that bothers me. I think more than special teams, the ineptness on special teams, because Rich Bisaccia is kind of the guy to help Matt LaFleur with the clock management, the game management stuff, which has been very, very poor the last couple of years. And that's where a guy like Jonathan Gannon, if he's going to be on the sideline as the defensive coordinator, he may be a better fit to be that in Matt LaFleur's ear when it comes to those situations where you need to manage the clock a little better.
I hope so. Look, clock management, huddle management, timeout management, challenge management. And I'm not saying all of this is on Rich Bisaccia by any means, but Matt LaFleur needs help in that area. And look, let's hope that there is a replacement there to help, because let's face it, special teams cost the Packers at least 2 or 3 wins this year.
Oh yeah, easily. The Dallas game, the blocked extra point that went for 2 points. That game was trending towards being a blowout, and then that happened, and you gave them life. Big special in Cleveland. That's a game you should have won, but you had terrible personnel. You had a terrible decision for the personnel you used for the field goals. Chicago, obviously,
Carolina.
Carolina, another one. There's just an overwhelming amount of issues in that phase of the game, and just in general. And Matt LaFleur is not blameless at all. He's not, but putting Rich Bisaccia in charge of so many important aspects of games, I think, has been the difference between the Packers winning and losing a lot of these close games the last couple of years. Gil, I'm ready to stop talking about coaching, but do you have any articles that are coming up in the Packers Post and She Said TV related to the coaching situation for the Packers?
Well, I do. Over on the Packers Post, I did put up an article of 10 things you may not know about Jonathan Gannon, so that is fun. And I'm also continuing my position by position review of the Packers, giving grades to each position group and what they did this year. And over on Cheesehead, I talked about Matthew Golden and trying to get him to have a breakout year in year two after a mildly disappointing rookie season.
He's going to get more involved when Romeo Doubs leaves in free agency. I'll miss Doubs, but he's going to – opportunities are coming, man. You saw that Chicago game was – the playoff game was a big indicator that good things are going to come for Matthew Golden eventually. Gil, I want to ask you, Jonathan Gannon, has he ever tried a cheese curd? Do we know that? Do
not know that. I guarantee you he will soon.
Yeah, I feel like that's these are the important questions I feel like that Jonathan Gannon needs to hear for sure. So, Gil, you ready for some trivia?
Let's give it a shot here.
Well, new Packers linebackers coach Sam Seifkes, he's a Wisconsin native. He went to high school in Oconomowoc. It's about 30 minutes west of Milwaukee. It's in my neck of the woods. Before he played college football as a defensive back for a short time and later becoming a student assistant coach at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse in western Wisconsin near the Minnesota and Iowa borders. Gil, which notable current Packers employee, is also a college graduate and former college football player at UW-La Crosse?
Oh, wow. That I do not know. I'll be straightforward. I do not know.
It's a pretty big name. And yeah, you're going to kick yourself, but now you're going to know that he's a UW-La Crosse graduate. It is general manager Brian Gutekunst.
There you go. Okay. Did not know that. Okay.
He was a linebacker at UW-La Crosse. I think it's better known you're in New York. I'm in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I think it's better known in Wisconsin. Like, oh yeah, he went to UW-La Crosse, but he was a linebacker there for 2 years before becoming the team's linebackers coach during his final 2 years of school in 1995 and 1996. He had a shoulder injury that cut his playing career short. And La Crosse won the D3 national title in 1995 with Gutekunst in charge of the linebacker room. Gutekunst became a member of the Packers scouting department in late 1998 after he was an intern in the team's scouting department in the summer of 97, and then had a short stint with the Kansas City Chiefs shortly after that. Now, a little bonus trivia, Gil. Which former Packers wide receiver also played his college football at UW-La Crosse?
The one and only touchdown Jesus.
No, that's UW Whitewater. He was there when I was there. But it's UW system, so I'll give you half a point for that.
Yeah, okay.
He was primarily late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, boy.
You're going to kick yourself because he was a popular player. He was in Green Bay.
Yes, he was.
It's a generic name, nothing special. It's just a pretty basic name.
Basic name. Bill Schrader.
Nailed it. Bill Schrader. He was selected with the 181st pick in the 6th round of the 1994 NFL draft. Had a really solid NFL career for a 6th-round pick, and for a former D3 football player. He caught 225 passes for more than 3,400 yards and scored 20 touchdowns in 5 seasons in Green Bay. Played for 2 more seasons in Detroit and 1 additional year in Tampa after his time at the Packers. 8-year career in the NFL as a 6th-round pick as a former D3 wide receiver. Super impressive. I remember he was a nice player. He had the occasional drop or two that kind of made you a little frustrated, but overall, he was one of Favre's trusted receivers, man. Like when he played, he was a solid player. And yeah, my brother, he went to UW-La Crosse as well, and he's actually met Bill Schrader before. Said he's a very nice guy, and
nice.
He's still got some wheels supposedly, at least back about 10 years ago or so.
Nice, very nice. Always was a fan of his.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now you know though. If you ever see Brian Gutekunst a passing, just say go UWL, go Eagles. That's what we did. That's what we did when we went to the playoff game in Santa Clara. We said, "Yo, La Crosse, Brian Gutekunst." He's like, "Heck yeah, go Eagles!"
Sweet, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, well, that is it for us today. We'll be right back here next week. Follow us on Twitter at Gil Packers and at GB Packers Sean. Stay up to date on all things Packers, or to ask us questions. Or you can email us at gbpackerssean@gmail.com. Make sure you're subscribed to Packers Talk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. A big thanks to PackersTalk.com for powering our show, and thank you for listening. Until next time, go Pack Go!
Go Pack Go!